Years ago, in a small village of an island nation called Fiji, you must have heard about it. It is an island nation which is there in Pacific called Fiji. Now there was this man. He has been telling a story to his grandson. He was a small child and he was telling this story, and he was telling the story in Hindi. The grandchild has asked, or the kid has asked, that why are you telling this story in Hindi? He told that the story is not much about the traditions or the, you can say, morals. This is more about connection with your roots. After the story ended, the kid has asked that English is the more prominent language, then why are we speaking Hindi in our household? So he told that it is not about the language, it is about the connection with the motherland. He told that our ancestors has been living in India and they have been brought here for the plantation, cultivation, etc. by the Britishers, and these are the diasporas who are living in the Fiji now. Now, world across, there are various people who as an Indian diaspora are living outside our country, and we celebrate and commemorate their contribution on 9th of January. So that is the Pravasi Bhartiya Diwas. Other than that, on 10th of January, we celebrate Vishwa Hindi Diwas. So both of them are, nearby, and this story is telling about both of these things, that how we are commemorating the contribution of our Pravasi Bhartiyas, or you can say the diasporas. In today's discussion, we will be talking about such things. My name is Dalit Soni and you are watching Polity This Week by Drishti IAS. In this session, we will be talking about few articles or the few developments which has happened in the polity in the last week. Okay. Herein, we will be talking about the Pravasi Bhartiya Diwas, which has been celebrated on 8th to 10th of January. And herein, there was this convention which was held. So, we will be talking about that. Then, we will be talking about other aspects as well. So, here you can see, we will be talking about the Digital Personal Data Protection Rules 2025. We will be talking about the Supreme Court's on CBI's consent requirement. When we are talking about the CBI, you know that for the probe, they have to, when they have to go for a probe in a particular state, they have to take a consent, be it general consent or the specific consent. That is a different matter, but they have to take consent. But recently there was this case in the Supreme Court wherein they have said that in a particular case, consent is not required. So we'll be talking about that. Then Bharatpol Portal of CBI. We'll be talking about this as well. You must have heard about the Interpol. Similarly, on that lines, there is this Bharatpol which has been created, and there is this particular portal. Okay, so name of the portal is Bharatpol Portal, and this portal has been created by CBI, which is you can say National Central Bureau, which is a you can say requirement which is there when you are a part of, you can say, Interpol. Okay, so all these requirements are there. Now let's start with the discussion. Before that, I would like to tell you that we are offering ISGS Foundation course for prelims as well as mains in offline mode. Classes are starting for Hindi medium from 16th of January, 11:30 AM, and for English medium, admissions are open. You can directly visit the center. Address is given over here, and you can get yourself enrolled, or you can call on this number, that is 87501 87501. Anyways, let's move further and start with the first article, that is your Pravasi Bhartiya Divas. Before that, let's see the explanation of the questions which has been given to you in the previous lecture. So, who can declare state mourning? Parliament, Prime Minister, President, or state government, or the central government? So, both of them can do. State government as well as central government can do. Okay. Then, moving further, which landmark case in India established the legal framework for the passive euthanasia? Keshanand Bharti, Aruna Shanbag, Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan, या Olga Tellis versus Bombay. Now, when we are talking about the passive euthanasia, the case name is Aruna Shanbag versus Union of India. When you talk about the living will, okay, that case will be common cause. Okay, so please remember that. Now, moving further, next question: under which section of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 is cruelty recognized as a ground for divorce? So, section 13(1) IA is the you can say clause which is there. Option C would be your right answer. Then, on which day private members bill typically discussed in the parliament? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday? So, option C is your right answer, that is Friday. Okay. Now, look at the 18th convention of Pravasi Bhartiya Divas. So, why do we celebrate Pravasi Bhartiya Divas? There is a simple story. You can say in one of the cold morning of January, and there was this ship which has returned to the docks of Mumbai, and in the passenger list there was this man who has returned after nearly 20 years, and he was working in South Africa, and he was fighting injustice over there, and now he was ready to do it in India. Now, the name of the person was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, or as you know him as Mahatma Gandhi. Okay. and his return to India has marked a significant, you can say, turning point in the history of our country, and from where you can say the idea of Indian national movement, or the you can say Indian national movement, has started basically. Okay, now considering this, we are saying that he came to India. That has marked a significant point in the history of our country, and that is the very day, 9th of January, we celebrate Pravasi Bhartiya Divas. We started celebrating it in 2003, and after that we are celebrating every year. But recently there has been change in the provisions, and ultimately now we are celebrating this day every 2 years. Now there has been 17 conventions which has been held, and now 18th is being held in India in Bhubaneswar in Odisha. Okay, so let's start with this. We will be talking about it. The 18th Pravasi Bhartiya Divas Convention is being organized in partnership with the state government of Odisha from 8th January to 10th January 2025 in Bhubaneswar. Okay, so that is the location which is important for you. Now coming to the specific discussion over here. So Pravasi Bhartiya Divas, or non-resident Indian Day. Okay, so this is the name which is there. So most commonly it is called as Pravasi Bhartiya Divas. Okay, then celebrated on 9th of January to mark the contribution and achievements of the overseas Indian community to the development of India, the flagship event of Ministry of External Affairs. So Ministry of External Affairs is the ministry who is responsible for the conduct of this particular event. Then it commemorates the return of Mahatma Gandhi from South Africa to India. The date was 9th January 1915. Okay, so please remember that. And then he started to take active participation in India's polity. It was first celebrated in 2003, an annual event. It was an annual event earlier, but after 2015 we are celebrating it every 2 years. Okay, as a Pravasi Bhartiya Divas. Okay, now coming to the next part over here, who are we celebrating? When we are talking about the Pravasi Bhartiyas, who are they? So basically we are celebrating the Indian diaspora. Now when we are talking about the Indian diaspora, so what kind of people are included in Indian diaspora? So there are three kind of categories which are there. One is non-resident Indians, those people who are not living in India but they are Indian citizens. So here you can say they are not in India for 180 days or 182 days, or in India for less than 365 days in 4 years. Okay, so these are two categories for NRIs. Okay, that is there. Then coming to the second, person of Indian origin. Now this is basically this was a separate category earlier, but now it has been merged with the overseas citizens of India in 2015. Now this is the time when you have seen that we were earlier celebrating the Pravasi Bhartiya Divas every year. In 2015 we are celebrating it after 2 years. Okay, every 2 years we are separating it. We are basically celebrating it. Okay. Then coming to the second category over here, your person of Indian origin. So we will be talking about that. Basically here you can see that the person is having roots over here. Okay. Then coming to the next one, overseas citizen of India. He is there are some eligibility criteria that there is a cutoff date which is January 26, 1950. If the person was citizen on that particular day, or he was eligible to be a citizen on that day, he will be, you can say, eligible for OCI registration. And then minor children are also eligible for that. Okay, now there are certain conditions which are there. Let's talk about that. First, when we are talking about the person of Indian origin, so he is a foreign national. He is not an Indian, but he is having roots in India. So basically what is happening over here is that there is a foreign person having a citizenship of another country, but their forefathers are living, or you can say they have been a citizen of India. Okay, so let's see. It is a foreign citizen except from the nations of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, China, Iran, Bhutan, Sri Lanka and Nepal. These are excluded. Here you can say a foreign citizen whose one of the parents, grandparents, great-grandparents were born and a permanent resident of India. So basically any forefather has been living in India, then that person is of Indian origin. Okay? Then moving further, who is the spouse of Indian citizen or the PIO? Another person who is a spouse of a PIO or the citizen of India, that person will also be considered as PIO. Then coming to the overseas citizen of India, so I told you that all those people who has been citizens or who were eligible to be a citizen on 26th January 1950, they are eligible for this. Other than that, a person who has been a part of a territory and that territory has been occupied by India after 15th of August 1947, that person will also be, you can say, eligible to be a part of overseas citizen of India cards. Okay. Then minor children of such people are also eligible for that. Now there are some, you can say, exceptions are there, that is Pakistan and Bangladesh. These countries, we will not be taking their, you can say, people or the resident over there, that will not be included in the OCI card. Okay, so here when we are talking about, there are Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, China, Iran, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, they are exceptions. Here you can see the Pakistan and Bangladesh are exceptions. Okay, that is the case of this particular thing after you can say 15th of August 1947. So this is there. There are two dates which you have to remember: 26th January 1950 and 15th of August 1947. So this is about your person of Indian origin or the overseas card holders. So that is about it. Now, what is the significance of diaspora? Why we are celebrating it? So basically, they have a contribution in our economy. They have a contribution in our development. Why? Because obviously they are living outside. They are sending some kind of remittances. They are investing in our, you can say, economy. Other than that, they have a soft power. They are creating a soft power for India. Let's say there is a, you can say, community of Indians which is living in USA. Okay. Now, in the recent election, you must have seen that Indians are having a sway in the United States elections, or they are having a political representation over there. So that is the soft power which they are creating. Okay, so they are considered as the you can say Rajdoot. Even our Prime Minister has said that for our soft power, they are our Rajdoot. Okay, so that is there, enhancing India's soft power. Indian diaspora is one of the richest minorities in many developed countries. Their advantage is evident in the diaspora diplomacy, where they act as the bridge builders between their homes and the adopted country. Then economic contribution, as I told you, in the case of remittances or the balance of payments, or other than that in the investments, they are contributing significant amount. So that is about the Pravasi Bhartiya Diwas, Pravasi Bhartiya Convention. Now when we are talking about this convention, during this convention, Pravasi Bhartiya Samman awards are also given. These Pravasi Bhartiya Samman awards are given by the president to those people who has contributed as a diaspora in the development of our country. Okay, or otherwise also if they have contributed in the ties of these nations. Okay, so that is there. Other than that, this year there are 27 prizes which has been given to the various people as well as organizations. And when we are talking about who will give the prize, the President of India will be giving the prize, and who will make the list, who will choose the candidates. So basically there will be a committee under Vice President of India. They will be choosing the names. Okay, so that is about Pravasi Bhartiya Samman Award as well. Now let's move further and talk about the digital draft digital personal data protection rules 2025. Now you must have seen that in 2023 there was this act, that was Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Okay, in 2023 they have come up with the act. Assent has been given by the president, but that implementation was still due. Why? Because when we are talking about an act, the implementation require various rules. These rules are made by the bureaucracy, and recently these rules has been made over here. Okay, so here you can see the Digital Personal Data Protection Act is there, and with respect to that they have made some rules. So we will be talking about that. Now these are draft rules. These will be implemented later. Okay, so let's see. Now Digital Personal Data Protection Rule 2025. Here you can see there was this act, Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023, enacted to safeguard the personal data and the regulation of the processing. When we are talking about data, you know that data is right now can be considered as the very important resources. It is recently considered as the new oil. Okay, so basically data is important for your corporates, for any kind of profit company, any multinational company, be it other nations or our own nation. Data is right now a very important resource. Now considering that it is important that you protect the personal data. Now what is personal data, what is non-personal data, we will be talking about that, but right now just know that this particular act deals with the personal data. Okay, now to enacted to safeguard personal data and regulate its processing, received presidential assent, but it is yet to be implemented. Then draft rule of 2025 aimed at operationalizing the act to implementation of the act. Then balanced data security, privacy and the ease of doing business. Balanced data security, when they are talking about the localization, when they are talking about the regulation of the data, they are talking about the data security. Second is privacy. When we are talking that this is the act which is protecting the personal data. Personal data means that the data which will give away your identity. Okay, so the privacy is important factor over here. And ease of doing business, you cannot just restrict the flow of data, because when we are talking about the businesses, data is important. So you cannot just put a cap, or you can say blanket cap on the data flow to be stopped. So that is why ease of doing business has to be balanced. So here there is a balance between data security, privacy and the ease of doing business. Focus on the selective data localization. That is what I am telling you, that you cannot put a blanket ban. You have to go for the selective data localization. When we are talking about the selective data localization, that means that critical data has to be stored in our own country. Okay, and what is the critical data? Data related to nuclear powers, etc. Data related to a person's identity. All these data are, you can say, should be localized in India. Now, what is personal data and what is non-personal data? When we are talking about the personal data, so basically this is the kind of data which will give away your identity. Okay, so what kind of data that is? Basically, you can say name, sex, caste, religion, Aadhaar number. These are kind of your personal data. Okay, so that is there. Data related to the finance, health, political beliefs, sexual orientation, sex, tribes, biometric, intersex, transgender, religion, etc. These are your personal data. Now, what is non-personal data? So basically the data which cannot tell that which particular person it is, or you can say cannot reveal the identity. Okay, so let's take an example. When we are talking about the census, okay, they will come up with a tab wherein they will be asking you various questions. Okay, they will be asking you your name, they will ask you your sex, your age, father's name, mother's name, education qualities, etc. All these things they will be asking. Now this is the personal data they are asking. Okay, now the protection of this personal data is important, but we are giving this data in census. Okay, then what they will do is that they will be taking such information from various households, and then they will be compiling some kind of trends, that they will be saying that the birth rate has increased, death rate has been unchanged, population has increased, literacy has increased. Now this trends or this data of the population, data of the birth rate, death rate, literacy, this is non-personal data, because that will not tell you. Because of the birth rate, you will not be identifying that who is child of whom. Okay, now that is why these are the non-personal data. Your identity is not been revealed. But whereas this data which has been collected, that is the personal data. Now security of this data is important, so that is why you will be aware of this fact that in the census the personal data will not be revealed. Okay, so that is some of the thing which you have to differentiate over here. Now coming to the next part here, there are certain terms which is important when you are discussing the data protection bill act, etc. So data fiduciary, that is the person who is collecting your data, and he knows the purpose that what will be done with this data. Okay, so let's say if you are ordering from an app online, and they are asking you for the name, they are asking you for the address, they are asking you for the you can say phone number. So this particular application or this particular company, that is data fiduciary, because that will be using this particular data for a purpose. Then coming to the next one, that is data processor. Who is the data processor? Now this company has taken all this data of, let's say, 100 customers, and then they have given this data to a particular processor, and they have asked that, tell me what can you tell from this particular data, like what kind of dishes has been ordered, which area is having the maximum demand, okay, what people are liking, what people are not liking. All these things can be, you can say, gathered from this data, and that will be the job of data processor. That processing will be done by the data processor. Then data principal. Data principal is the person whose data has been taken. The person whose data has been taken, that will be the data principal. Okay, so these three things are clear. Now let's talk about the draft rules. Data localization framework. Localization means that we are trying to keep it locally. Okay, so let's say we are living in India. There is a company that is an MNC. Company's name is X, and that particular company is gathering a lot of data for their own purpose. And now since this particular company is an MNC, they are having an office in USA. So they are saying that we will be sending this data to USA, we will be processing it there, we will be keeping it there. Okay, now India says that, okay, fine, you can send the data, but you can only send the standard data, you cannot send the critical data. You cannot send the critical data. That means that that particular kind of data which is sensitive in nature, which can pose you can say risk to the national security, etc., that cannot be transferred. So that is called as localization, that such data will be kept in India only, that will be processed in India only. Okay, so that is called as the critical data, that is called as the data localization framework. So here there will be a central committee formation. There will be a committee which will be formed by the center, recommended the type of personal data requiring localization. So they will be telling you that which kind of data require localization, that cannot go outside our country. Collaborate with the ministers and the regulators to ensure industry friendly policies. Let's say now RBI is there. Now RBI has taken some of the data for the financial needs. Okay, now this particular specific financial data is there. So in that case, RBI is the authority with which this committee will be collaborating, and making sure that which kind of data should stay in India. Okay, so that is there. Coming to the next one, selective restriction on the data flow. As I told you, the critical data to remain in India. Okay, otherwise you are not putting a blanket ban. You are just saying that the critical data is to be retained in India. So that is why there is a selective restriction which has been put over here. Then coming to the next one, significant data fiduciaries. As I told you, this particular company MNC X, which is collecting the data, that is data fiduciary. They are processing the data. They are basically telling you the what is the purpose of the data, for what purpose they are taking the data. Now that company is the fiduciary, that on whom I have trusted and given my data. Okay, so now which company will be a significant data fiduciary? So that will be decided based on the size of that particular company, the role of that particular company. So when we are talking about companies like Meta, Google, etc., these are some big large entities which are there, which are playing with a lot of data. So these are called as a significant data fiduciaries. Okay, so here large entities, example Meta, Google, managing the sensitive data, assessed based on the volume and the risk to the sovereignty, security and the public order. Okay, so these are some of the factors which are related to the data localization. Coming to the next one, that is the data breach reporting obligation. Now company X has taken my data, and there was let's say some 1,000 people whose data was with the company X, and someday some cyber attack has happened on the company and the data has been stolen, or there was a breach of the data. Now there is an obligation on this company to tell all these 1,000 people that this kind of data has been breached, and what will happen to that particular data, what kind of risk is involved. So that will be told by this company to all these 1,000 people. One thing, that you have to tell the individual, these individual whose data was there. Second thing, you have to tell this to the Data Protection Board of India. Data Protection Board of India, which is not yet formed, it will be formed later. Okay, so you will be telling that to individuals and the Data Protection Board. Okay, so that is there. Affected individuals to be informed without delay. Notification includes the nature, timing, the extent of the breach, consequence of the for the users, and the mitigation action which has been taken by the company over here. Then informing the Data Protection Board of India, which is not yet established, within 72 hours of the data breach. And what is the penalty if you don't you can say put any safeguard, or you are having some kind of failure to put any kind of safeguard with respect to the data protection. In that case, there is a penalty or the fine which can lead up to 250 crore rupees. Okay, so that is there with respect to the data breach and the reporting operations. Coming to the next one, child data protection provisions which are there. So if there is a child which is operating some kind of application, etc., in that case, if you are taking the data, you have to take the consent of the parents. Okay, so companies to verify parental guardian consent before processing the children's data. Mechanisms such as digital lockers for the verification can be allowed, and what kind of mechanism you will be using, that is up to companies. Okay, so there is no uniform system has been imposed over here. Then coming to the next one over here, that is transparency in the data processing. User notification will be given clear, and the standalone notices required before the processing of the personal data. If there is a processing of data, let's say company X is there, they have gathered the data, but now they are saying that we are going to process this data. For that, you have to send a notification. Okay, so that clear notification will be there, and you have to include the itemized data being collected, what kind of data you are collecting for the processing. Second thing, what is the purpose of the processing and use of the data for the goods and services. These three things you have to tell in the notification. If a user does not use online services for a long period, if there is a person who has not used this particular services for a particular period of time, then you will be sending a notification that in next 48 hours all your data will be deleted. Okay, so if a person is not using your application, you will not be holding up to that particular data. You will be sending a notification that in 48 hours your data will be deleted. If that person wants it to keep wants to keep that data with you, they will respond accordingly. Otherwise, you will have to delete the data. So these are some of the things which has been mentioned in the rules, which is important for us, which we have discussed now. Now coming to the next one, Supreme Court on CBI's consent requirement. Now, when we are talking about the CBI, you know that CBI is the, you can say, agency of a center, and when they are going to any state, they need to have a consent. Okay, what is the consent? That you will be asking that we have this particular case and we want to investigate, then let us allow us to be inside your state. So there are two kind of consent. One is your general consent, and then there is this specific consent. Okay, now general consent is mean that state has told you that you have the general consent, you can come anytime, investigate and go, don't bother us. Okay, so that is the general consent. Second is the specific case by case. Okay, if state has not given you general consent, then you have to come every time ask the state for the permission. Okay, so that is basically the consent requirement. Now let's see what is the case right now and what Supreme Court has said. Now Supreme Court ruling says that the Supreme Court ruled that the CBI does not need state government consent to register FIR against a central government employee under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Now they have said that if there is a central law that has been violated, and that has been violated by a central employee, okay, there is a government servant officer of the central government and he has violated a particular law that is a central law like Prevention of Corruption Act. In that case, you don't require any kind of consent for filing an FIR. Okay, so that is what Supreme Court has said. What was the old judgment over here? Let's see. The decision overturns the Andhra Pradesh High Court judgment from April 2023 that quashed 2 FIRs filed by the CBI in Telangana due to the lack of the state sanction. Wherein in 2023 there was this 2 FIRs which has been filed in Andhra Pradesh by CBI, but Andhra Pradesh said that the general consent which was given by us during, before the creation of Telangana, at that point of time we have given the consent, but the thing is after that the state has bifurcated. Okay, so the thing is you do not have the state sanction, so that is why the FIR filed by you over here, that is quashed, or you can say that is not valid. Okay, now Supreme Court said that when you were Andhra Pradesh, at that point of time you have given the general consent, and then you were divided into 2 states. One is Andhra Pradesh, second was Telangana. So until unless you revoke or repeal this particular consent which was given to you, okay, so that particular general consent will be valid. Okay, so since Andhra Pradesh did not revoke or repeal, or you can say amend that particular general consent which was given earlier, in that regard that consent was still there, so CBI can do that. Okay, so that is there. Other than that, post bifurcation consent, the Supreme Court clarified that the general consent given to CBI by the undivided Andhra Pradesh government before bifurcation remains valid for both Andhra Pradesh and Telangana unless repealed or you can say amended. Okay, so that was the case over here. Now let's talk about some requirement over here of the central legislation. So here you can say there is a central legislation supremacy which has been set by the court over here. The court judgment emphasized that the central government employees are governed by the central laws like the Prevention of Corruption Act, and the state consent is not required for registering in the FIR. So basically they are saying that if there is a central law which has been violated by a central employee under which he was governed, in that case no consent is required. Okay, coming to the next one, legal principle, same thing is written over here. The court stated that FIR under a central act can be filed without the state consent if the alleged offence involves central government employee irrespective of the place of the posting. Implication, the ruling ensures the CBI's authority in investigating corruption cases involving the central government officials is, you can say, upheld. Okay, so that is basically the issue which has been discussed by us, wherein it was said that whether the consent is there or not, if the state has given the general consent and then state was bifurcated into 2 states, so whether the general consent will stay or not. So court has said that it will stay. Second thing is, if there is a central employee, he has violated a central act, then in that case the consent of the state will be required for the filing the FIR by CBI or not. So the court has said that central legislation will have supremacy, and since a person is a central employee and the legislation which has been violated is also a central legislation, in that case you will not be requiring any consent from the state. Okay, so that is what has been discussed over here. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the CBI. Now CBI was established in 1963 under the recommendation of Shantanam Committee. Okay, then it was you can say established under Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946. There was already this act. Okay, so they did not come up with a separate act. Under this act only they have established CBI. Okay, to investigate corruption, economic offences and the other serious crimes. Jurisdiction is basically, you can say, CBI operates under the jurisdiction of the central government with powers to investigate offence across the states with the prior consent or the notification, which we have already discussed that there can be general consent as well as the specific case to case consent. Then it acts as the National Central Bureau for the Interpol. Whenever there is a transboundary crime which has happened and Interpol is involved, so there is this provision of making National Central Bureau. Okay, so that is there, and for India that bureau is basically CBI. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now coming to the next part, that is Bharatpol. We were talking about the Interpol. Interpol has this tendency, whenever there is a transborder crime, so they will be intimating the CBI, and then CBI will be sending the information to the field officers. Okay, now this flow of information sometimes can be, there can be a glitch, there can be a leak which can be there, or there can be a delay because of the so many channels which are there. Now, considering that they have come up with the Bharatpol portal, so basically there will be a portal. So let's say Interpol has sent some kind of information. That information will be going to the Bharatpol portal. Okay. Now this portal has been created by CBI. CBI has the access to this. Now there are various field officers, regional centers of the CBI are there. Now information is there on the Bharatpol. You can, police officer 1 or the CBI officer 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever are stakeholders which are there, they can access this information. Now one thing is clear, information is there as it is. There is no leak. Second thing is, it is happening at the real time basis. Okay, at the real time basis. That means that whenever Interpol is sending you any kind of information, that is directly going to the Bharatpol portal. So that is increasing the efficiency as well. So that is the idea behind creating Bharatpol. Let's talk about this. Bharatpol portal to streamline the international assistance request through Interpol, including the red notices and the other color coded Interpol notices. When we are talking about the Interpol, there are various color coded notices are there which are having different meaning. You don't have to go into details of that. Then designed to enhance efficiency for the field level police officers in dealing with the transnational crimes and the security challenges. Facilitates real-time information sharing for faster access to the international police assistance. So that is there, as I told you, that there is a real-time information sharing which is there. It strengthens India's efforts in combating transnational crime through the advanced technology and the international collaborations. A transformative tool developed by the Central Bureau of Investigation to boost the Indian law enforcement agencies, which is a general things which is we have talked about the Bharatpol. Okay, now enables easier, faster access to the international police resources, strengthening India's criminal justice system, ensures better coordination among the law enforcement officers in India and abroad. Coming to the next thing, that is what is Interpol. Okay, we have discussed about the interaction between Bharatpol, Interpol and CBI. Now we will be seeing that what is Interpol, because we have already discussed the CBI thing. Now here you can see an independent international organization facilitating international police cooperation. Okay, now here international crime police organization. So basically if there is an international crime, so this particular body will be taking a cognizance of that, and they will be working with the national police. Okay, so here you can say an independent international organization. Independent because it is not part of UN. Okay, so please remember that this is not a body of UN. So that is their international organization. It is an intergovernmental as well. Intergovernmental organization which is independent and not part of UN. International police cooperation against the cross-border terrorism, trafficking and the other crimes. There are 195 members which are there, and the headquarters is there in Lyon, France, and it is not a part of United Nations system. So this is about Interpol, which we have discussed, which you have to remember because that is quite important. Okay, so that is about today's discussion. Now there will be few questions which you have to attempt and answer to me in the comment box. So let's see the first question. Which ministry is responsible for organizing Pravasi Bhartiya Diwas? Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Education? So you can attempt and tell me which committee's recommendation led to the establishment of the CBI, Sarkaria Commission, Santhanam Committee, Malimat Committee or Shah Commission? Okay. Coming to the third question, which is which agency act as the National Central Bureau for Interpol in India? Ministry of External Affairs, Central Bureau of Investigation, National Crime Record Bureau or Intelligence Bureau? Okay, so you can attempt that. Then who will be responsible for recommending the type of personal data that should be localized in India? RBI, Central Committee formed by the government, Data Protection Authority of India or Ministry of Finance? Okay, so you can attempt these questions and answer to me in the comment box. With that, I would like to take your leave. I'll see you in the next session. Till then, have a nice day. Thank you and enjoy your weekend.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.